Black CEO denied. First class seat 6 minutes later, he had the flight attendant removed. Hello everyone, before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to the story. Sir, I'm going to need you to step out of the first class line. You're not on this list. The words cracked through the airport terminal like a slap across polished marble. Loud, sharp. Designed for public humiliation, not protocol. Heads turned instantly, passengers freezing mid-step, luggage wheels screeching to a halt, conversations dying on half-spoken syllables. Gate C-12, Chicago O'Hare, 5:47 p.m. Boarding lights blinking in calm blue. But the atmosphere shifted suddenly brittle, suddenly watching. At the center of that widening circle stood Jordan Hale, tall, composed, dressed in a simple charcoal suit and carrying nothing more than a slim leather briefcase. No chains, no noise, no entourage, just a man expecting to board his flight like everyone else. Across from him, the flight attendant, a young man with a smug tilt in his smirk, held a clipboard like it was a weapon. His voice rose deliberately, dragging more eyes toward them. Sir, first class is reserved for our premium clients. This line isn't for general passengers. A woman nearby gasped. Someone else muttered, "Wow." Phones came out the ritual of modern judgment. Jordan didn't move. His expression didn't shift. It didn't have to. His silence carried more weight than the attendant's performance ever could. The attendant stepped closer, lowering his voice only enough to make the condescension more personal. Let's not make this difficult. I don't know how you got upgraded, but we both know this seat isn't for you. A few passengers exchanged uneasy glances. A man in a business suit whispered, "He looks like he belongs here more than half this line." Another shushed him. Two TSA agents watched from across the gate, hands resting on their belts, waiting for the situation to escalate. Waiting for permission. Jordan inhaled once slow, almost imperceptible, the kind of breath someone takes not out of anger, but calculation. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change, and we're glad you're here. Now, back to Jordan. The attendant waved the clipboard dramatically. Sir, step aside now. I'm not asking again. People like you always try to push boundaries. That did it. A ripple of discomfort spread through the line. A mother looked away. A teenager bit her lip. A man tightened his grip on his carry-on as if prejudice were contagious. Jordan finally lifted his gaze, meeting the young attendant's eyes with a calmness so steady it made the man blink. No raised voice. No argument, no panic, just a quiet, terrifying composure, the kind possessed by someone who has spent a lifetime enduring these moments, yet never letting them define him. He reached slowly into his jacket. Several passengers tensed. TSA straightened. But Jordan only pulled out his boarding pass, embossed, pristine, unmistakably first class, and held it up without a word. The attendant snatched it, scanned it, frowned, scanned it again. His arrogance wavered. That's strange. System must be glitching. This still doesn't look right. He said it loudly, deliberately, the last attempt to save face. But Jordan remained still, eyes calm, shoulders relaxed, posture unbroken, a storm gathering in silence. Behind the counter, a supervisor looked up, noticing the standoff. Her brows furrowed. She began walking toward them. And in that moment, that tiny, trembling pause, the entire terminal felt it. Something was about to shift. Something the young flight attendant was nowhere near prepared for. The supervisor arrived with brisk, confident steps, the kind of walk someone develops after years of extinguishing airport chaos before it spreads. Her name tag read, Mandy R., Senior Cabin Operations Supervisor. But even her practiced smile faltered when she saw the ring of passengers, the phones held high, the tension carved into the air. "What seems to be the issue?" she asked, calm but alert. The flight attendant straightened, eager reinforcements finally arriving. "Mom, this passenger is trying to board first class without proper status. His ticket doesn't match." His Mandy held up a hand. "Let me see." He handed over the boarding pass with a flourish that suggested he expected praise. But the moment Mandy scanned it, her face changed. Professionalism cracked, color drained. Her throat bobbed in a single hard swallow. Sir, could I speak with you privately?" she said, voice suddenly too careful. Jordan shook his head. "Here is fine," a few passengers murmured. Someone whispered, "He said that like he's the one in charge." Mandy hesitated, glancing between the scanner and Jordan's eyes. She lowered her voice. "Your ticket is not only valid," she said, "it's registered under the highest tier executive clearance we offer. I've only seen this level once in my career." The young attendant blinked. "What? That's not possible." Mandy's tone sharpened. "It's not just first class. He has corporate owner privileges. He outranks every staff member on this aircraft, including me." A hush rippled through the gate. Jordan didn't smirk, didn't gloat, just watched quietly as realization spread like a slow, inevitable tide. The attendant's bravado began to collapse. "What do you mean, owner?" he whispered. Mandy exhaled. "Hez, a primary executive stakeholder of the parent company that owns this airline." A beat of stunned silence. Then another. Someone near the front muttered, "Oh, he's their boss." Another, softer, "No, he's their boss." Jordan let the weight settle before speaking, not loud, not dramatic, simply steady. "I gave him 3 chances," he said, eyes on the attendant. 3 opportunities to correct his assumption before escalating this. The attendant's mouth opened, closed, opened again, a floundering motion, like a man trying to breathe underwater. "Sir, I didn't know that's exactly the problem." Passengers murmured in agreement. A woman nodded. A father whispered to his daughter, "Pay attention. This is what dignity looks like." Mandy straightened, adopting the posture of someone preparing for impact. "Mr. Hale, would you like to file a complaint?" Jordan held her gaze. "No." The attendant exhaled in shaky relief, until Jordan added, "I'm issuing a directive." Mandy's pulse visibly jumped. "A directive, sir?" Jordan stepped closer, voice low but unmistakably firm. "Remove him from service. Effective immediately." The words were quiet, but they struck with the force of a gavel. Gasps fluttered through the crowd. Someone whispered, "He just ended that man's job." Another said, "No, the man ended his own." The attendant staggered back, eyes wide, fear replacing arrogance. "Please, sir." "I didn't mean." Jordan didn't meet his eyes. He nodded once to Mandy. "Escort him away from the gate." Mandy signaled 2 uniformed staff. They approached, gently but firmly guiding the now speechless attendant toward the corridor. His clipboard dangled from limp fingers. His confidence was gone. As they disappeared around the corner, the gate fell, silent, reverent, almost humbled. Not by power, but by restraint. Jordan turned back to the passengers, giving a small, composed nod, not asking for approval, simply acknowledging the moment. Then he stepped forward, boarding pass in hand, as the scanner lit green in a single, flawless blink. Gate C-12 didn't just open for him. It stepped out of his way. The jet bridge hummed with the low, metallic drone of ventilation vents pushing out cold, recycled air. Every step Jordan took echoed softly, the kind of echo that follows someone who walks without hesitation. Behind him, boarding had halted entirely. Passengers held back until the supervisor finished her report. At the aircraft door, the purser, an older woman with decades of flight experience etched into the calm lines of her face, stood waiting. The moment she saw Mandy approaching with urgency and the now removed attendant escorted away, her expression shifted from routine professionalism to something far more alert. "Mr. Hale?" she asked quietly. Jordan nodded once. Her posture straightened immediately, the way soldiers instinctively stand taller in the presence of a superior they never expected to meet. She stepped aside with graceful precision, gesturing toward the cabin. "Welcome aboard. Please allow me to escort you to your seat personally." Jordan offered a polite nod, but said nothing. Inside, first class glowed in soft amber light, wide leather seats, polished fixtures. champagne already chilling in slender crystal flutes. A few early passengers glanced up from their phones, curiosity flickering when they noticed the supervisor trailing closely behind Jordan like a shadow. Row 1, Seat A, his seat. He set his briefcase down gently. The way someone handles objects that carry more than documents, more than deals, sometimes history. The purser leaned in. If you require anything special during the flight, sir, anything at all, we will arrange it immediately. Thank you, Jordan replied, voice even. But before she could step away, a timid voice drifted from the opposite aisle. Excuse me, is everything all right? A middle-aged woman, traveling alone, clutching the edge of her cashmere scarf like it was protection. Her eyes held genuine concern, not the rubbernecking curiosity of the terminal crowd earlier. Jordan gave her a small, reassuring smile. Everything's fine, ma'am. But the purser turned to her with a different tone, one of quiet authority. There was an incident at the gate. It has been resolved, and standards will be upheld. The woman nodded softly, a weight lifting from her features. Good. You handled yourself with such grace. Most people would have snapped. Jordan simply said, snapping rarely changes minds. A nearby businessman overheard, shifting uncomfortably. Had been one of the passengers filming earlier, one of the silent spectators. Now he lowered his gaze, shame, slow and settling. Cabin crew moved with renewed purpose, checking overhead bins, straightening napkins, resetting the atmosphere. But beneath their efficiency, there was a hum of tension, the kind that ripples through a team realizing they had just witnessed the thin line between authority and judgment. Mandy approached once more, this time with her tablet clutched like a confession. Mr. Hale, I need to formally apologize on behalf of the airline. You already addressed the issue, Jordan said. She hesitated. Sir, there's something else. Your executive profile pinged our system. Headquarters wants confirmation. They're requesting to connect with you directly. Jordan's jaw tightened a fraction, the first visible sign of irritation since the ordeal began. Tell them I'm unavailable until landing. Understood, Mandy replied instantly. Her nod carried both respect and relief, the kind that came from being spared a storm. She stepped back as boarding resumed. Passengers entered quietly now, looking around, sensing the residue of conflict but not understanding its depth. A few recognized Jordan from the earlier commotion, their expressions flickering between guilt and admiration. Some murmured apologies. Others offered polite nods. Jordan acknowledged none of it. As the cabin filled, the pilot stepped out of the cockpit, a rare move. Tall, composed, silver wings glinting under the overhead lights. Mr. Hale, he said, extending a hand. I was informed of the situation. I want you to know well. Ensure your experience is handled with the utmost respect. Jordan shook his hand. Fly the plane well, Captain. That's all I require. The captain smiled, not performative, not nervous, but genuine. Yes, sir. He returned to the cockpit. The door clicked shut. The moment settled. The cabin lights dimmed. A soft chime signaled final boarding. But before the door closed, Mandy leaned in one last time. Mr. Hale, for what it's worth, thank you for staying calm. Most people wouldn't have. Jordan looked out the window, watching the runway lights blink like distant warnings. Calm, he said quietly, isn't the absence of anger. It's choosing how to use it. The door sealed, and the flight, along with everything that was about to unfold at 30,000 feet, officially began. The engines rumbled beneath the cabin floor, a low, rising vibration that felt like a warning more than a welcome. As the aircraft pushed back from the gate, the lights dimmed to a soft twilight glow, casting long shadows across the first-class cabin. Passengers settled in. Buckles clicked. Screens lit up. But Jordan wasn't watching the safety demonstration. He was watching the reflection in his window, the faint outline of himself, calm but coiled, a man accustomed to storms yet never careless with them. Across the aisle, the purser pretended to check a storage compartment, though her eyes flicked toward him every few seconds. Something in her expression had shifted from curiosity to the recognition of someone whose presence reshaped the gravity of a room. Halfway through taxiing, a quiet chime sounded. The purser approached. Mr. Hale, the cabin crew has prepared the revised service protocol you requested. Jordan frowned slightly. I didn't request anything. She blinked. Sir, we received a note from corporate stating your preferences should override the standard procedures. Jordan exhaled slowly, not in frustration, but in confirmation of a thought he'd been calculating since the moment the incident began. Headquarters was nervous. They should be. Well, Jordan said softly, consider this my preference. Treat every passenger with the same respect you plan to treat me with. The purser nodded, chastened, almost relieved. Yes, sir. As she stepped away, a man in seat 1C leaned forward. Expensive watch, crisp suit. The confident look of someone used to being the most important person in any room until today. Sir, he murmured, I saw what happened at the gate. I just wanted to say, the attendant was out of line. Jordan didn't look at him. But you didn't say anything then. The man froze. His mouth opened, but no defense came. Jordan didn't need to raise his voice. The truth had already landed. The plane paused at the runway's edge, engines spooling with a rising whine. A few passengers shifted nervously that moment before takeoff when everyone suddenly remembers the sky has no mercy. Jordan adjusted his seatbelt, resting his head back, but his thoughts weren't in the cabin. They were 12 hours ahead. The board meeting. The acquisition. The airline's parent company, the one he co-owned, was about to undergo a structural overhaul, a quiet one, a necessary one, and after today, a more urgent one. The pilot's voice broke through the intercom. Flight attendants, prepare for takeoff. The roar surged. The cabin pressed back. Lights flickered over rows of eyes, waiting, wondering, unaware. As the plane lifted into the night, a soft ding signaled the autopilot's steady hand. Passengers exhaled collectively. Screens resumed. Drinks clinked. But Jordan's stillness remained unbroken until a subtle shadow fell over him. Mandy. She stood carefully beside him, knees slightly bent to balance against the climb. Sir, she began, voice tight, there's something you should know. Jordan turned his head just enough to meet her eyes. The employee you dismissed. He filed an internal complaint. Against you. A murmur rippled through the nearby seats. Jordan didn't react. What grounds? He asked quietly. Mandy swallowed. He claims you used your position to intimidate him. Alleging misconduct. A few passengers gasped softly, pretending not to listen but failing miserably. Jordan didn't blink. And corporate accepted that report? That's the strange part, she whispered. They didn't accept it. They escalated it immediately. Straight to the Office of Executive Compliance. Jordan's expression didn't tighten, didn't darken, but the air around him shifted enough for the purser across the cabin to feel it. And when? He asked softly. Was this filed? 2 minutes after he was escorted out. Jordan nodded slowly. And has the board been notified? Mandy hesitated. We don't know. But the speed of escalation is unusual, sir. Very unusual. A cold clarity settled over Jordan like a sculptor placing the final stroke on marble. This wasn't the attendant acting alone. This was something else. Something deeper. Something deliberate. Jordan straightened his jacket. Thank you, Mandy. That will be all. She stepped away, troubled. The cabin hummed around him, unaware that above 30,000 feet, something far bigger than a gate dispute had just been set in motion. Jordan leaned back into his seat, eyes fixed forward. The airline thought they understood power. They hadn't met consequence yet. Cruising altitude brought a strange kind of quiet, the kind that settles only when there's nowhere left to run, nowhere left to hide, just sky pressing against aluminum and truth pressing against everyone inside it. The cabin lights shifted to a warm amber hue. Drinks were poured, laughter resumed in cautious fragments. But beneath it all, a different tension lived. Jordan sat motionless, watching the condensation trail down the window like the world was melting in slow motion. Inside his calm exterior, an old instinct stirred, the one sharpened by years of boardrooms, hostile takeovers, and the kind of silence that comes before entire companies collapse. He pulled out his phone. No signal at 34,000 feet. That was fine. He didn't need the internet for what came next. He swiped open a folder simply labeled Arian Holdings Internal Structure. The parent company, his company. 27 subsidiaries. 9 international partnerships. 3 shells designed for takeover bid shielding. One airline, this airline perched precariously at the center. He had been planning a restructuring, but now the timeline had accelerated. A flight attendant approached quietly, placing a glass of sparkling water on his table. Not champagne, not wine, simpler, more respectful. "Mr. Hale," she whispered, "if you need absolute privacy at any moment, we can discreetly close the forward galley." "Not yet," he said. She nodded and slipped away, leaving only the soft hum of pressurized air behind. Across the aisle, the businessman in 1C kept glancing at him, unable to shake the weight of Jordan's earlier words. Other passengers whispered behind raised menus, behind half-lowered headphones. Is he really an owner? Why didn't they recognize him? People don't realize how power actually looks. Jordan ignored them all. Instead, he replayed Mandy's words. They escalated it immediately. Escalated. Not reviewed, not processed, but escalated. Which meant one thing. Someone wanted him destabilized before tomorrow's meeting. The dots connected with clean precision. A rival board faction. A pending vote requiring unanimous approval. Two senior executives rumored to be positioning themselves for a leadership challenge. And now, an in-flight misconduct accusation, thin, ungrounded, but perfectly timed. Jordan exhaled slowly. "So that's your play," he murmured to himself. The cabin shifted as the plane hit a mild current. Crystal glasses rattled. A few passengers tensed. Jordan didn't move. Then, a soft chime. The purser appeared again, this time with a tablet held like a sealed verdict. "Mr. Hale, I apologize, but corporate sent another message. This one marked urgent compliance advisory. They want confirmation that you are seated and available for a call." Jordan raised an eyebrow. "During flight?" "Yes, sir. They said it cannot wait. The cabin might as well have frozen solid." Even passengers who weren't listening were listening now. Jordan closed the tablet gently with 2 fingers. "Tell them," he said, voice steady, "that I do not take directives from anyone who bypasses proper protocol." The purser nodded quickly, not fearful, but loyal. "Yes, Mr. Hale." She stepped away. As she moved up the aisle, the businessman in 1C finally found the courage to speak again. "Sir, forgive me, but are you saying corporate might be working against you?" Jordan didn't turn. "In business," he said, "the knife that cuts deepest is rarely held by an enemy." The man swallowed hard. The plane dipped slightly, wings adjusting to a stronger jet stream. Overhead compartments creaked. The lights flickered once, then footsteps. Mandy returned. "Mr. Hale, corporate has sent one more request." She paused, breath unsteady. "They're demanding clarification on your authority over the staff removal. They said if they don't receive confirmation, disciplinary measures will begin upon landing." A quiet shock rippled through the cabin. Disciplinary measures? Against him? Jordan tapped a finger once against the armrest, a small, controlled gesture that carried the weight of a gavel. "What exactly?" he asked. "Did they say?" Mandy looked down at the tablet. "Failure to comply will result in temporary suspension of executive privileges pending investigation." The passengers around them stiffened. Suspension. Of him, the man who owned part of the company. Jordan leaned back, a faint, dangerous calm settling over him. "So they want to fight," he said. Mandy whispered, "Sir, what do you want to do?" Jordan turned his eyes toward the front of the aircraft, not at the crew, not at the passengers, but as if he were staring through the bulkhead into the heart of the corporation itself. "Prepare the cabin," he said softly. "For what?" Jordan's expression didn't change. "For a decision that will land before we do, and somewhere far below them, in a skyscraper filled with board members who thought the sky made him powerless." Jordan Hale began to decide which of them would still have a job by morning. The aircraft sliced through the jet stream, steady and sharp, while tension pooled in the first-class cabin like a storm cloud trapped beneath the ceiling. The amber lights softened, but nothing else did. Every whisper felt louder. Every glance lingered longer. It was the kind of silence people fall into when they realize they're sitting inside a story that will be retold. Jordan slid his briefcase closer and opened it halfway. Not enough for the nearby passengers to see, but enough for him to reach a slim, matte black device tucked in a hidden sleeve. It wasn't a laptop. It wasn't a phone. It was an executive access module, a secure tool used only by top-level stakeholders of Airline Holdings. There were fewer than 20 in existence. He tapped it once. The screen glowed faintly, displaying encrypted menus and a login prompt with retinal scan confirmation. He held it to his eye. Access granted. 3 words that shifted his posture from patient to precise. Across the aisle, the businessman in 1C watched him with a mix of awe and concern. He had abandoned his magazine. His champagne sat untouched. His breathing had gone shallow. It was the look of a man realizing he had misjudged someone so severely that his brain was still trying to reconcile the difference. Meanwhile, down the cabin, the purser subtly signaled the crew to keep unnecessary activity to a minimum. No carts clattering, no idle chatter, no interruptions. This wasn't service. This was containment. Jordan scrolled through a list of internal notices. Compliance alerts, escalation logs, timeline stamps. Then he found it, the suspicious thread. Incident report, filed by A. Foster, gate attendant. Status, immediate escalation. Compliance. Tier 1, forwarded to Board Executive Liaison. Forwarded again to Office of Corporate Integrity Recommendation. Review Hale Executive Authority. Jordan's jaw tightened. This wasn't random. This wasn't overreaction. This was coordination. Someone was using a simple gate confrontation as a tool, a lever to pry open a weakness in his influence ahead of tomorrow's leadership vote. Someone thought they could weaponize optics. Someone thought a public incident would force him into defense. Someone thought he would bend. Jordan clicked into the metadata attached to the report. A name appeared briefly, half hidden, encrypted but not entirely. S.T.R. He narrowed his eyes. Enough of a fragment to know exactly who it was. The deputy chairman. His only real rival. A man who had waited 3 years for an opportunity like this. A man who believed strategy was a game of shadows, where perception mattered more than truth. Jordan closed the device. He wasn't angry. He wasn't surprised. He was disappointed. Another chime. This time, the purser approached with a folded note, not a message from corporate, not a system alert, a handwritten note. From the captain, sir. Jordan unfolded it. The handwriting was clean, sharp, the script of someone who had spent most of his life filling logbooks. If you need a secure channel when we reach cruising stability, open the cockpit relay. No questions asked. Captain Rhodes Jordan looked up. The cockpit door was closed, but he felt the solidarity behind it. Tell him thank you, Jordan said quietly. As the purser walked away, the businessman finally spoke again, voice trembling. Sir, I don't mean to intrude, but what exactly is happening? Jordan studied him not harshly, but with the weight of someone who had learned to measure people carefully. Do you know what happens, Jordan asked, when people believe respect is optional? The man swallowed. Chaos? Jordan shook his head. No, they mistake silence for weakness, and then they test how far that illusion can carry them. The businessman nodded slowly, understanding more than he wanted to. A faint tremor rippled through the plane turbulence, lightly brushing the fuselage, but the real turbulence lived in the cabin, in the space between what had been set in motion and what was now inevitable. Jordan unbuckled his seatbelt and sat upright, posture sharpened like a blade being drawn. He pressed a button on his device. A prompt appeared, Initiate Emergency Executive Review Protocol. This action cannot be reversed. Proceed? Jordan hesitated, just long enough to honor the gravity of what he was about to do. Then he tapped yes. Lights flickered. The cabin hummed deeper. Somewhere, in a skyscraper hundreds of miles below, alarms flashed across secure terminals. Jordan leaned back in his seat, calm as ever. He hadn't started a war. He had simply ended a mistake. And when Airline Holdings opened its eyes to the decision he just made, no one on that board, not even the deputy chairman, would sleep tonight. The aircraft glided through a dense pocket of clouds, wings trembling just enough to make passengers grip their armrests. But Jordan remained perfectly still, his eyes fixed on the dimmed screen of the executive module. A soft pulse glowed at its center, a visual heartbeat confirming that the emergency executive review protocol had begun rippling through Airline Holdings' internal network. One by one, the names of senior executives lit up in a cascading sequence of alerts. Some marked as notified, some marked as flagged, 2 already marked as under review. The system wasn't subtle. It wasn't designed to be. Across the aisle, the businessman in 1C leaned forward slightly, voice low with a mixture of dread and curiosity. Is that bad? For them, I mean. Jordan didn't look up. For the ones who expected me to stay quiet, very. A soft chime from the overhead speakers interrupted the moment. Ladies and gentlemen, we are entering a period of light turbulence. Please remain seated. Light turbulence was an understatement. The aircraft began to sway in long, heavy motions, the kind that made the cabin lights flicker and water glasses tremble like they sensed truth before humans did. The purser hurried down the aisle, steadying herself against seatbacks. She paused by Jordan's row. "Mr. Hale," she whispered. The captain asked to confirm. "Do you still want access to the cockpit relay?" "Yes," Jordan said. "Open the channel." She nodded and disappeared behind the reinforced door. A minute later, the executive module vibrated softly. Secure channel established. Cockpit relay active. A voice filtered through calm, steady, wrapped in the kind of authority only pilots and people who don't flinch under pressure possess. "Mr. Hale, this is Captain Rhodes. I'm patching you directly to the protected corporate line." Jordan pressed a button. "Proceed." A click. A breath. Then Jordan. The voice on the other end carried arrogance, disguised as composure. The deputy chairman. So he decided to speak. Jordan's tone didn't shift. "You escalated a false complaint. What I did," the man replied, "was force transparency. You've operated unchecked for years. People are finally questioning your judgment." "People?" Jordan repeated. "Or just you?" A pause crackled through the encrypted line. Lightning flashed outside the aircraft, illuminating the cabin in a brief white-blue glow. The deputy chairman exhaled. "You overstepped today. I'm making sure the board sees it." Jordan leaned back. "No. What you did was attempt to manufacture leverage. On the eve of a vote, you know you'll lose. You think you can intimidate us from 30,000 feet? Not intimidate," Jordan said quietly. "Clarify." He tapped one command on the module. A new alert flashed. "Board access restrictions engaged, temporary suspension." "Deputy chairman." "On the line," the man sputtered. "What did you just—" Jordan ended the call. The cabin hummed again, steady now, turbulence easing as though the sky itself bowed out of the confrontation. The businessman in 1C whispered almost reverently. "Sir, did you just suspend the second highest executive in your company? Mid-flight?" Jordan closed the module. "No," he said. "I suspended the man who mistook my silence for permission." Outside, the clouds split open, revealing a clean stretch of moonlit sky. Inside, the balance of power had shifted quietly, decisively, and unmistakably, and the night wasn't over yet. The sky smoothed into a quiet silver canvas, moonlight riding the wings like a calm witness to everything unfolding inside the aircraft. The turbulence tapered off, replaced by a hush so complete it felt orchestrated, as if even the engines understood that something irreversible had just occurred. Jordan closed the executive module and slid it into his briefcase, the soft click of the latch echoing like the final note of a verdict. Nearby passengers pretended to watch their screens, but their eyes flickered toward him, unable to look away from the man who had just changed the fate of an entire corporation mid-air. A flight attendant approached slowly, hands clasped, posture almost ceremonial. "Mr. Hale, would you like your meal service now?" "No, thank you." She nodded and retreated, but not before offering him a look not fear, not awe, but respect. The kind reserved for people who navigate crises the way others navigate hallways. Across the aisle, 1C sat frozen, the reality of what Head witnessed still unraveling in his mind. "Sir," he whispered finally, Do they understand what you just did? On the ground, I mean." Jordan turned his head slightly. "They understand enough to be afraid," he said, "and afraid people make mistakes." The man swallowed. "What happens next?" Jordan looked forward, where the cabin lights converged into a soft halo near the curtain separating first class from the rest of the plane. "Consequences," he murmured. "Not the petty kind they tried to weaponize, the structural kind." A subtle shiver moved through the passengers who heard him. Then, another chime. This time it wasn't turbulence or service. It was Mandy, her expression tighter than before, her steps measured like someone walking through a room collapsing in slow motion. "Mr. Hale," she said quietly, "we've received an update from corporate, a formal one." Jordan motioned for her to continue. She held up her device, voice barely above a whisper. "They're calling an emergency pre-vote session. Tonight, while you're in the air." Jordan inhaled. "Once." "Of course they were. Which means," Mandy continued, "they want to proceed without you present." The passengers around them felt it, the shift in the air, the weight tightening across Jordan's shoulders. But he didn't flinch. "They can't legally hold a session without all principal stakeholders notified," Jordan said. Mandy nodded. "They notified you, sir. Just now. That's their loophole." Jordan tapped a finger slowly against his armrest, a measured beat, a warning disguised as patience. "And what is the session about?" he asked. Mandy hesitated. "They're voting to restrict your executive powers temporarily, until the complaint is investigated." A quiet gasp floated from someone in row 2. Jordan's gaze drifted downward, thoughtful. He wasn't angry. He wasn't surprised. He was done being polite. "Tell me," he said, "is the cockpit relay still open?" "Yes, sir." Jordan rose slightly in his seat, adjusting his cuffs with calm precision. "Then patch me through." Mandy stepped back, pressing a finger to her earpiece as she moved toward the cockpit door. Passengers leaned in, breath held, sensing that the next few minutes would redraw the lines of power across an entire corporation. Jordan rested his hands on the armrests, eyes forward, voice composed. "If they want a vote before landing," he murmured, "I'll give them one." He glanced at the moonlit wing outside his window. "But it won't be the vote they planned." Moments later, the secure relay clicked alive, a doorway opening between the sky and the boardroom below, where his rivals believed altitude made him powerless. They were about to learn otherwise. A soft, muted tone pulsed through the executive module, the sound of the secure relay stabilizing, locking Jordan into the very meeting they hoped he would miss. The first-class cabin dimmed another shade, as though the lights themselves understood the gravity of what was about to unfold. A holographic interface bloomed across the device's surface, resolving into 12 miniature screens, each one showing the face of a board member sitting somewhere across the country, hastily assembled in a late-night emergency session. Confusion flickered across their expressions, irritation followed, and then, unmistakably, fear. "Good evening," Jordan said, voice calm, steady. Even at 34,000 feet, he carried the presence of a man who owned the room and the air beneath it. The deputy chairman's square lit up, his face pale and strained. "Jordan, this is a closed session." "No," Jordan corrected. "This is a scheduled session, and I am present." Several board members exchanged glances. One whispered something off-screen. Another cleared his throat loudly, trying to regain composure. A woman with silver hair. "Director Morrison." The audit chair leaned forward. "Mr. Hale, we received notice of an incident involving you, and the board believes," Jordan cut in gently, "without force, but with total authority, that the complaint was filed by an employee who was terminated for cause, escalated improperly, and weaponized to interfere with tomorrow's leadership vote." A stunned silence. "Not one of them denied it," he continued, voice unshaken. "What concerns me more is not the complaint. It is the coordinated misuse of corporate integrity channels." Several screens shifted, shoulders stiffening, faces tightening, eyes darting. The deputy chairman tried to recover, swallowing hard. "We acted in the company's best interest." "No," Jordan replied. "You acted in your own." The module flickered. A new command prompt appeared, triggered automatically by his authority tier. "Initiate board oversight review authorize." Jordan didn't press it yet. He wanted them to feel the moment first. Director Morrison spoke again, softer this time. "Mr. Hale, perhaps we should postpone the vote until you land." "You won't," Jordan said, "because I'm ending the matter now." He tapped the module. A ripple of digital light swept across the screens. Emergency executive review. Activated individual alerts flashed beside board members' names. Deputy Chairman. Investigative suspension. Immediate. 3 senior advisors. Conflict of interest. Probe Integrity Office Director. Temporary removal. Pending review. The deputy chairman lurched forward, face red. You have no right. Jordan's tone didn't rise. I have every right. The bylaws you approved give principal stakeholders full authority to protect the company from internal sabotage. A few board members subtly nodded, the ones not involved in the plot. The ones relieved someone finally reset the balance. Jordan continued, each word measured. This airline and the corporation behind it will not operate on prejudice, coercion, or fear. And it will not tolerate executives who confuse personal ambition for leadership. The deputy chairman slammed his hand on the table. You think the board will stand for this? Jordan leaned in slightly, eyes sharp as steel beneath moonlight. They already have. Director Morrison cleared her throat. In light of recent findings, I motion to remove the deputy chairman pending full investigation. A second voice followed. I second. One by one, green confirmations lit up across the 12 squares. Unanimous. Inevitable. The deputy chairman froze, the realization landing like a final verdict. Jordan closed the module with a gentle click. Meeting adjourned. The screens vanished. The cabin exhaled, not literally, but spiritually, as if the entire aircraft understood that something monumental had shifted. Jordan leaned back in his seat, the quiet settling around him once more. Above the clouds, justice had been delivered without raised voices, without spectacle, without a single ounce of performative power. Just truth. Just composure. Just consequence. Far below, the corporate world scrambled to understand what had just hit it. But up here, Jordan Hale simply closed his eyes. The sky had never felt so level.